What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, we're back at it once again with another volume of the Rumble in the Jungle series. Now, if you guys are relatively new to the channel, you may not necessarily be familiar with the Rumble in the Jungle series. So basically, the Rumble, I kind of have a few series going on. I think it's about 3 that I started. One being the Battle of the Uploaders, for which I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are familiar. Then I have a Battle of the Builds, which I'm pretty sure you guys may also be familiar. And then I have this one, which is basically the Rumble in the Jungle. Now, what's the difference between the 3? Battle of the Builds, obviously, is just a showcase of certain unique, or what I would consider to be unique yet viable builds in an effort to help spark player creativity. Battle of the Uploaders, really nothing special. It's just basically one of those deals where we just kind of spread a little community cohesion by myself having a few battles with some of the other Dark Souls uploaders. Rumble in the Jungle is just one of those things where I find someone with a pretty good playing style, and I think it would definitely be a good series of matches for everyone to watch. Right, so that's basically what the Rumble in the Jungle is about. So, before I get started, I'd like to offer my thanks and show of appreciation to good old Alan DeLorean. Right, but on here, he's HawkeyeAlain. Now, HawkeyeAlain is not an uploader, nor is he a Twitch streamer. However, he is pretty familiar and definitely known around the community, right? Because he does a lot of PvP, right? He's in tons of other places. I'm pretty sure if you guys are on PS3, you may have either invaded him, or perhaps he may have invaded you. Right, so after having a series of matches with Alan DeLorean, I figured that this would definitely be an awesome showcase for everyone to see. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into it. Now, we had a lot of exchanges in this series. As a matter of fact, I definitely fought really hard during this series. And the one good thing about Alan DeLorean's playstyle, and you guys are going to notice, this guy almost never backstabs. Right? Almost never. Which is definitely a good thing, right? Because, sometimes I'll have matches with guys, and when I get backstabbed a lot, now, before I get into it, for all you haters, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with backstabbing during duels. Not at all. There's nothing wrong with it. But what I'm saying is, despite it being nothing wrong with it, you yourself can attest, right? I know a lot of you honor dudes like to stick your finger at everyone else and, try to act like everyone else has a problem and you don't. But if you're honest with yourself, there are times when you may be in a series of matches and perhaps you're getting BS'd over and over again. You may think to yourself like, okay, dude, now come on now. That's all you're doing. So, like I said before, although it is legitimate, I was definitely not in one of those situations where I felt like he was getting a lot of his wins because of, well, speak of the devil, of BS. So, that was definitely a good thing. Now, some of you may say to yourself, well, what's so particularly special about that? Well, what's special about that, in my personal opinion, is the fact that he got a lot of wins. So seeing that, the wins that he got, like 90% of them were without BS's. I would say at the times that I lost, I basically felt outplayed, like flat out. And when I say outplayed, I don't necessarily, and actually let me just kind of clarify that, okay? Because in other words, someone may say, well, dude, if you lost, you clearly got outplayed. I don't necessarily think that. And let me give you a few examples as to why I say that. let's say you're dealing with a guy who's using dark bead and he one or two shots you. I lost, right? But do I personally feel outplayed? I don't personally, right? Or let's just say you have one of those guys with those OP large club or great club / hornet ring builds, right? And then they one shot you. Did I really feel outplayed? No, I didn't feel outplayed. Or if I'm playing with one of those guys that all they do is roll BS, right? Or one of those guys that, you know, all they did was try to stagger the crap out of me, you know, stagger into BS. Now, these are examples that I'm giving. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these play styles, but what I'm saying is, I mean, it's kind of easy, especially for a lot of these guys with these great swords. It's like super easy because I know how to do it. I mean, I do it a lot of times during random invasions, especially in the forest. It is super easy to stagger somebody into a BS and basically take like all of their vitality. But, you know, during duels, me personally, that's one of the limitations that I place on myself because I am focusing on technique. I am focusing on strategies, not necessarily trying to kill my opponent in 1 or 2 hits. Right? So I say all that to say that during the time that we had our matches and I was losing, for which I got a lot of losses, I basically felt outplayed, outmaneuvered, and outskilled, which is a good thing. Right? Because keep in mind, he's a little similar to me, at least in these few exchanges that we had, in the sense that he doesn't use a lot of OP weapons, nor is he using a whole bunch of OP strategies. So basically, if he wins, he just outmaneuvered you, right? Or he outplayed you. And these are the type of guys that I like playing against, right? Number one, they're a challenge, right? Because I didn't really tally, but, you know, when we kind of talk amongst ourselves, you know, he'll just have his little joke of, well, you know, you beat me a whole bunch of times. But granted, that could be a little humility, right? Which is a good personality trait. But like I said before, during this whole exchange, I felt like I was basically getting my behind spanked. Because like I said before, I don't tally. Because when I am dueling, or having to battle the builds, or having to battle the uploaders, or something like that, it's not about winning or losing, in my personal opinion, right? Because to the extent that you guys are kind of familiar with the channel, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard me voice this on a number of occasions, that my focus, I have one focus, right, that can be basically broken down in 2 segments, which is basically learning while having fun, right? My focus is not to be some kind of hotshot uploader that everyone knows. My focus is not to, you know, just have this name that ring bells and everyone is just like, holy crap, that guy's a PvP god. No. I like the game, I share my opinions, and I upload my footage for others to share. Right? There's nothing more to it. Nothing more to it. And that's why when a lot of guys say, hey dude, I mean, you say you're this, you say you're that, you're pretty humble. Well, I think, number one, I think that's a good personality trait. And number 2, of course I'm humble because my goal is not to be a hotshot. Right? My goal is to have fun and learn at the same time. Right? So this was definitely a fun series, both during my wins and losses, for which I probably got an even number of both, right? Maybe the scales were slated, you know, were kind of weighed a little heavily on one side over the other, but despite that, all these matches were definitely good matches, because like I said before, at the times that I lost, I basically felt like I got outplayed. Now, I didn't really ask him the details to his build, because from what I can see is basically either is a 2840 or something closer to 4040. Right? I myself, this is bad, and actually this is my favorite build. This is my absolute favorite build. I can do everything with this build. Anything I want to do, I can do with it. Right? If I want to use any ring combination, I can use it and still have decent weapons and fast roll. I don't really have to sacrifice anything, and the thing is, with this build, I only have 45 endurance. It's really nothing even special about it, right? But this is basically my quality build. It's just my standard 40-40 build, nothing special about it. So basically, I think we both have variations of quality. Either with his being, and actually, like I said before, me personally, you know, I know all the hotshots will tell you that 2840 or 2740 variation is a quality build. Me personally, I consider it to be a dexterity build. And as I explained in the past, the reason why I would consider it to be a dexterity build is because the Murakumo is a dexterity weapon. And the reason why you would go to 28 on a dexterity build, because it would allow you to use all of the dexterity weapons. Now, do you have the ability to make some strength weapons in there? Yeah, you could two-hand them. But me personally, I consider a 27 or 2840 to be a dexterity build. And like I said before, my rationale behind it is because the Murakumo is a dexterity weapon, and with it being the heaviest dexterity weapon, the 28 strength will allow you to use all of the dexterity weapons. That guy parried me so many times during this series. I mean, it was just crazy. Right? I mean, so many times. It was just ridiculous. And then he just kind of dashes off. GG. Alright, now, myself, I am rocking the quality build. So, my variation is just basically a 40-40 build. 40 in strength, 40 in endurance. It's perfect. I can do anything I want with it. And I basically get the maximum damage output while keeping in mind diminished returns. Now, what exactly do I mean by keeping in mind diminished returns? Well, what I mean is, case in point, there's absolutely no need to go higher than 40 in dexterity unless you are trying to improve cast speed. Flat out. If you guys are new, maybe this could be new information. If you guys are experienced, I'm just basically blabbering over something that you guys already know. Same with strength. Due to diminished returns, anything over 40, I mean, you're basically just wasting points in strength unless there is a higher minimum strength requirement for you to be able to one-hand it. Case in point, that let's see, one of those demon great axes, I think that has a strength requirement of 46. So is there diminished returns for going past 40? No, because you have a minimum strength requirement of 46, so you're good. Now if you try to go to 75 with that thing, that's kind of where diminished returns kick in, because you're basically wasting a whole bunch of soul levels for an increase that is not even really all that significant. If you guys notice, I got that high speed 715 on the counter hit. 715. And actually in some occasions, and not during this series, but this is just during some of my random invasions and Berg invasions, I was getting like 800 on a counter damage just with a ball. I mean, I was killing them dudes with this build. And this is just one of those builds that well, not one of those builds, this is just one of those variations wherein I like to use my rapier. Now, this build also allows me to, dual wield. I can use strength weapons. As a matter of fact, I think the only limitation I have to this build is that my total weapon load cannot, well, actually, weapon and shield, I'll just say equipment load. Right, obviously not including the armor. My total equipment load cannot exceed 16. Right, 16 units. So it's basically perfect for a quality build. I can use a Black Knight Great Axe with a rapier, and actually more than 16 units. I'll say 17.5 units, because I tried to go full 18 units and I started medium rolling. So I think this build allows me up to 17.5 units. So it's perfect. I can do anything that I want and get just about the maximum damage output, all things considered. Alright. So, like I said before, there's really nothing special about our builds. I've used a 2840 variation, and I think either his is 2840 or 3040 or something like that. And I think he said he used a 3040 because, actually 3240. He did tell me what his build was. And the reason why he's a 3240 was because he wanted to be able, that guy parried me so many times, it's just ridiculous. Pardon that. The reason why he went 3240 was because he wanted to be able to one-hand the Black Knight Halberd, which is another weapon that I like. And actually, I should have got that parry right there, but maybe the timing was slightly off. So, whatever. GG on that match right there. So, his build is a 3240. So, he's pretty much kind of close to a quality build, but also he's pretty close to the dexterity build. But whatever title you want to put on it, it suits his playstyle well, right? Because he can pretty much do some of anything. Now, one thing I will have to say about his playstyle, he's kind of hard to attack. Because if you guys know, now granted, he's kind of hard to attack in some cases, but he also has an established pattern. And you guys are going to notice this. One of his established patterns is, in a lot of cases, he'll do like 3 rolls. Like just 3 like continuous rolls, and then he'll like attack after the 3rd roll. We had a number of fights, not just on this particular evening, but also on a number of other occasions. Alright, got the good parry right there. And that's one thing that I noticed, and I think a little later on he kind of started to calm down, because I started to time my attacks, right? Like I would just sit here and I would say, okay, so he's going to start attacking after the 3rd roll, and bingo, he would. So a little later on he started to mix it up a little bit, but outside of that, I mean, that guy moves around so much, it's kind of hard to BS him, right? And when I say hard to BS, right, I'm saying hard to punish BS. Now granted, it's easy to lock BS, right, because sometimes I'm in duels. I mean, you know what a lock BS is. You see a person just basically running straight at you, you know, kind of like it's an invasion or something. But I mean, like I said before, that's just a personal thing. Me, I try not to lock BS. In most cases I don't, because it's just way too obvious, right? I try to leave my BSs for a punish or a roll if I feel like I cannot, just like right there, he just so happened to be right there, so I took advantage of that BS, right? But like I said before, when I'm dueling, I definitely play a lot different than what I do during random invasions. So, I guess he's kind of low on the vitality, so he's got a shield up, he's kind of protecting himself, and I'm surprised he's not going to substitute that wolf ring for a red tearstone ring, because I fought a number of guys, and I went from totally dominating to basically being one-shotted with the parry riposte, right? But he doesn't necessarily need that, because that guy's kind of hot shot on the parrying. And you know, speaking of parrying, I know I've talked about the run-up method a lot of times in the past. And you know what? During this series, and during the time that I had, I'm not going to necessarily, well, let me kind of take that back. During this series, and during some of the matches wherein I'm fighting some really experienced players, I found myself starting to do that run-up method. Now, not necessarily as often and as obvious as I see some of these other guys do. Because I'm pretty sure you guys may have witnessed yourself me kind of doing the run-up method on a number of occasions, right? And the reason, you know, when I noticed it myself, I'm like, man, I'm kind of doing that run-up method. And the thing is, there's a vast difference between, you know, when you're playing, you know, in the forest as a forest hunter, you know, ganker hunting or whatever you want to call it. Because when you're doing that, you can just basically set up parry. or do one of those instant turnaround parries or something like that, right? But when you're fighting an experienced player, in most cases they are not R1 spamming. So now that I have switched shields, I kind of have a better understanding as to why some of these guys do a lot of those run-up parries. Now, I still don't like the fact that a lot of them, like, their patterns are so obvious when they do it, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys know, right? Especially if you're one of those duelists, one of those guys that like just sit back and do a lot of formal setup matches. You can almost just sit there and determine when exactly they're going to do it. And actually, I'm going to tell you the scenario. Usually, they'll attack 1 or 2 times, right? And then they'll roll backwards as to avoid an attack. And then they'll just come at you, run up to you, and parry. And then they'll just go do 1 or 2 more attacks, dodge, do 1 more 2 attacks, and then they back off. And they're just so obvious with it. They don't even mix it up in a lot of these occasions. So I think that's one of the reasons why I personally never really liked that parry method, even though it's legitimate, right? It's just one of those observations that I make for myself. That guy got me with another parry. Ugh. GG broski. Alright, so we're back at it once again. So, like I said before, I'm pretty sure you guys can attest to yourself that during the times that I lost, I basically got outplayed, right? Like I said before, he's not one of those guys that are trying to, because I run into these guys so many times. And, after you have about 4 or 5 matches with someone, and I'm talking specifically about some of these great sword dudes, when you have like 4 or 5 matches with these dudes, and you notice that the only thing that your opponent is doing, they'll back off, and then they'll do a running R1, try to stagger BS you, then they'll back off, running R1 at you again, try to stagger BS you, back off, run at you again, try to stagger BS you. Then it's kind of like, dude, you're really doing that weapon no justice, because all you're doing is the same thing. You're not mixing weapons. You're not mixing anything. You're not really doing anything other than the same technique. And I think when you are that predictable, you basically enable your opponent to notice a pattern and therefore take advantage of it, right? Because in other words, if you're one of those great short users and that's one of the only combinations that you do, number one, I can start parrying your running R1 attack. And if you stagger me, I could just toggle out of it and immediately parry, because all you do is follow up with that same old combination. So, I don't know, just a short little observation for a lot of you guys that love those, running R1 into backstab combinations. You might want to mix it up a little bit, because at least if you mix it up, your opponent might be a little more confused. And you might therefore be a lot less predictable, right? But that's just a little food for thought. You can do whatever you want, right? Because in the brigade, all we do is talk about play styles, make observations, but we make no personal critiques, right? Because like I said before, one thing about me, if I don't like your play style, I just simply won't summon you again, right? I won't throw any salt your way. Now, this is not to say that I won't have thoughts within myself. We all do, right? Even you guys that like pointing your finger, right? We all have thoughts. But see, the thing is, I just won't summon you again. Flat out. It just is what it is. I won't throw any salt, but I'll just make the personal decision to say, you know what? I just don't think I'll summon that guy again. Alright, so enough ranting about that. So, up to this point, I hope you guys have enjoyed the series. This was definitely a tough series. And, I know this focus is on HawkeyeAlain, but I like to just point you guys in the directions of Spades' channel. We recently did a battle of the uploaders, but the thing is, my wife was asleep. I woke up early. It was like 5 in the morning, and I was not going to go in there in that room trying to record while she's in there getting her rest. So you guys can go ahead and get a sneak peek of some of the matches that went on between Spades and myself. And one of these days, when he is not on that nocturnal sleep schedule, we will do another series of matches wherein I will be able to add commentary to it. Now, another thing, it's been confirmed that Dark Souls 2 will not be released until March of next year. So, that being said, I know originally I said that I was going to stop at 200 uploads, but that was when I thought that Dark Souls would be released this year, right? But since those dreams have been crushed, I will continue to do uploads. Now, when PS4 is released, I am going to be hopping on the bandwagon of different games, but you guarantee I will not stop uploading now that we will not be getting Dark Souls until next year. So enough about that. So, thanks again, Alan DeLorean, for this wonderful series. It was definitely hard, definitely challenging, but certainly fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So, and that was a punish for all those Barry's attempts. So, until next time, Martyrs Brigade is